Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we'll be focusing on the presidential activities of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the past week, and more specifically in the past couple of days, as President al-Sisi had just wrapped up a visit to Djibouti on Thursday, a historic visit, the first by an Egyptian president for Djibouti since 1977, after gaining independence for the Horn of Africa country. Of course, during the visit by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, there was a meeting between President al-Sisi and his counterpart from Djibouti, Ismail Omar Geila, and they discussed the future of the Horn of Africa region, the cooperation between both countries, between Egypt and Djibouti, the stances of Egypt and Djibouti towards the controversial Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the future of it, and how it could be affecting the whole region and not just the downstream countries, and of course the counter-terrorism and ways of eliminating terrorism, not just in Egypt, not just in Djibouti, but in the whole of Africa as a continent. And this will be the main focus for tonight, the presidential activities of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Thursday. But we'll be starting with what happened in Gaza. As we did see in the past week, the Egyptian brokered ceasefire and the implications of it and the aftermath of the ceasefire that took place in the past week, and the reopening of the Rafah border crossing by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the directives of President al-Sisi to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, to be treating the injured of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and on the other hand delivering the Egyptian aid to the Gaza Strip and Palestine in general. We'll be seeing the pictures of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Gaza itself, saying that President al-Sisi is the main contributor, is the main supporter for the Palestinian cause. And this picture, or those pictures on the streets of the Gaza Strip, they were put by the Palestinians, by the citizens living, by the residents residing at the Gaza Strip, saying President al-Sisi is the biggest supporter, is the biggest contributor to the Palestinian cause, and not just by words, but in action. And this was put up by the Palestinian citizens, by the Gaza Strip residents, as a thank you to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the efforts that we did see being exerted by Egypt under the leadership of President al-Sisi to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians in the past couple of weeks, to be reopening the Rafah border crossing once again for the treatment of the injured in the Gaza Strip, to be delivering about 130 huge trucks loaded with aid from Egypt, funded by the Tahya Misr Fund, to the Palestinians and the residents of the Gaza Strip, the citizens of the Gaza Strip in specific. This is a thank you by the residents of Palestine, by the citizens of the Gaza Strip on the streets of the Strip itself, saying that President al-Sisi is and will always be the biggest contributor, the biggest supporter for the Palestinian cause, not in words, but in action. As we see 130 huge trucks delivered from Egypt to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, loaded with aid funded by the Tahya Misr Fund, by the Egyptians, from the Egyptians to the brothers and sisters in the Gaza Strip and in Palestine in general. President al-Sisi, in action and not by words, is and will always be the biggest supporter and contributor to the Palestinian cause. And this brings us to the top story for tonight for the daily debate, and it comes from Palestine as well. The top story is President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delegated on Sunday the head of the intelligence agency, General Abbas Kamel, to the Palestinian territories and Israel to discuss the Egyptian brokered ceasefire deal. General Kamel is leading an Egyptian security delegation that is tasked with holding meetings with the officials in the Hamas-ruled Gaza Strip, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. In Ramallah, Kamel met with the Palestinian President Abbas and delivered a message from President al-Sisi, where he reiterated the full support to the Palestinian people and its leadership. President al-Sisi stressed that Egypt is keen on the rights of the Palestinian people. The president also directed the Egyptian delegation to discuss the reconstruction efforts in the Gaza Strip and the ceasefire efforts in the West Bank and the Enclave. The delegation will also tackle the inter-Palestinian reconciliation efforts and means to end the rift among the Palestinian factions. A new step and in the efforts of the Egyptian leadership under President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be alleviating the suffering of the Palestinians, not just in the Gaza Strip, as we did see earlier on the program, but in whole of Palestine and in different ways. Of course, we will be shedding more light on the presidential activities of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, but not in Palestine, in Africa and towards building more cooperation and bigger coordination between Egypt and Djibouti and the African continent in general. After the upcoming report, we will be having more details about the visit, the historic visit by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the first of its kind since 1977, since regaining independence for Djibouti by an Egyptian president. So we'll be seeing more information about the visit in the upcoming report.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi wrapped up a visit on Thursday to Djibouti, where he held talks with his counterpart Ismail Omar Guelleh as part of Egypt's diplomatic attempts to build more African alliances amid an ongoing water dispute with Ethiopia. President al-Sisi's visit to the Horn of Africa nation is the first by an Egyptian president since Djibouti declared independence in 1977. President Sisi and Guelleh agreed that the Ethiopian dam should be filled and operated according to a fair and binding legal agreement that could maintain regional stability and preserve interests of all parties. In a statement, presidential spokesman Bassem Rodi said that President Sisi and his Djiboutian counterpart also stressed their strategic partnership on fighting terror in the Horn of Africa and underscored their cooperation over security issues in the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb Strait. The visit comes amid mounting tension between Egypt and Sudan on one hand and Ethiopia on the other over Ethiopia's $4.6 billion grant Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile. Egypt and Sudan feared that the Ethiopian reservoir would affect their water shares, especially in times of drought. An expert on Africa at Egypt's Al-Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies said that a rapprochement between Egypt and Djibouti is crucial in order to prevent Djibouti from taking Ethiopia's side. Nile dispute talks with Ethiopia stalled in April. International and regional efforts have since tried to revive negotiations without success. Egypt and Sudan argue that Ethiopia's plan to add 13.5 billion cubic meters of water in 2021 to the dam's reservoir is a threat to them. Egypt has been seeking a legally binding agreement that would spell out how the dam is operated and filled, based on international law and norms governing cross-border rivers. Last week, President Joe Biden acknowledged Egypt's concerns about access to Nile water and stressed his administration's interest in reaching diplomatic resolution.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. As I said in the beginning or before the report, that we tonight will be focusing on the presidential activities of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Africa in general, more specifically in Djibouti, the first historic visit by President al-Sisi, an Egyptian president to be visiting Djibouti for the first time since 1977 after regaining independence. And tonight to be shedding more light on such an important topic, I'm honored to be having with me in the studio Dr. Khaled Abu Heib, the head of the International Committee at the National Council for Strategic Planning. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Pleasure having you.
The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you.
During the break, I did see President al-Sisi saying that the security and stability of this continent are a big investment, the biggest investment that we could be having here in Africa. How do you see such a statement before anything else?
Okay, that's a good question and a good point to start a debate.
Yes.
So, speaking about stability, there is no economic development is going to happen without stability. And there is no investor is going to come invest in your country without stability and without security. So it is by far and by all means, it's the most important issue countries, and Africa especially has to take care of about its security and stability to start absorbing, gaining, and international financials, so it can start building its future.
And that's in general for Africa by the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to the whole of Africa. But on Thursday, the historic visit to Djibouti, how did you see the significance of it?
Let me tell you, I like very much the way you put the questions.
Thank you.
But let's say why it is historic first. And what does it mean? There is a lot of symbolic means to that visit. If you follow up what the president has been doing the past month, especially even during Ramadan, and you look to the African map and to check his movements, you will see him. We were going and we're having a lot of delegations now in Sudan, a lot of delegations in Uganda, a lot of delegations in Kenya and Burundi, and finally in Djibouti. So we're talking here about all the countries which we have the sources of the Nile coming to. These are
the Nile basin countries.
Yes, basin country. If you go back in time, historically, all of these countries were under the Egyptian throne. Our king was the king of Egypt, Sudan, Kordofan, Darfur, Said Bilad al-Nuba, Manab al-Nil, and the Nile-based countries, because they were not countries then. Djibouti was under the Egyptian throne. So, if we can use a much more lighter terminology, we were marking our base again and our territory. So symbolically, it is a very, very strong message.
But today, in terms of cooperation and coordination between the countries?
To secure the whole area and secure the Nile countries, we need to focus on stabilities in these countries and to resolve all the issues peacefully. So leading by example, all the countries in this area were looking toward the Egyptians and the presidency in the past 2, maybe 4 or 5 years, what we did. And now, with all of this economic development, what we're seeing, we're giving them the message. That's how the way you countries has go. There's stability, then comes the security, stability, then the economic development. Don't forget that these countries, especially Djibouti, is looking to Egypt as they need development in a lot of things, especially in the humanitarian aspects, like in the healthcare systems, like in the education, like in logistics. So there's a lot which Egypt can do to help them to reach security and stability. which in all will reflect to the whole region, especially with the importance of the geographic location of Djibouti. By far, it is the most important visit happened in Africa. I can consider it by the president going to Djibouti. It's very important.
In your opinion, what are the shared interests between Egypt and Djibouti now?
Okay, so we're talking about Djibouti, again, it was part of Egypt in the past, part of the throne, part of our territory. So the location of Djibouti in the entrance of Bab el-Mandeb, of the entrance of the Red Sea.
Yes.
And don't forget, the country which is putting pressure on us right now, which is Ethiopia, is a locked country. So they need to export their goods. They need to import their goods, either through Djibouti or Eritrea. So politically, it was a very important move. Moving economically between us and them, it is a great market and a great location for the Egyptian goods and the Egyptian companies to be in that very strategic, important location. So economically, it's opening a new market, wide, eliminating a lot of obstacles which could have been done, opening a lot of employment for our youth to go over there, to work over there, and to work towards prosperous for both countries.
You've mentioned, Doctor, that a lot of countries in Africa, they need a lot of things, a lot of aid in different sectors and in different fields. Speaking specifically about Djibouti, how did you see the promises of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of more cooperation between Egypt and Djibouti, and how could those promises be translated on the ground as soon as possible?
They could be translated immediately, because don't forget that our economic movement started in the past 24 months or 36 months in the maximum. So we are ready to move. And we have the manpower to make this happen, and we have the will to make this happen. So I don't think that there is no time to waste. So things will be there, I think, immediately. The relations has to be open, the channels has to be open, and I can see it a great opportunity for Egypt and Djibouti.
The strategic location of Djibouti at Bab el-Mandeb Strait, in terms of navigation, how important is this location for Egypt and for the African continent in general?
Okay, for Egypt, if we go back in history, it was closing the Bab el-Mandeb during our war in the Great War of the 6th of October. Closing Bab el-Mandeb was a very important strategic move which helped us won the war. So strategically, it is very, very important to have a great presence over there. And if you allow me to say, it's been overdue for the past 30 years. What President Sisi is doing right now, this is overdue, but he's going out of his way, trying to regain the image of Egypt and the presence on Egypt, and reclaiming back our position with the African countries.
Yes, a very important key word that you've mentioned, the image of Egypt. Doctor, how did you see the image of Egypt being regained? How did it change once again under the leadership of President al-Sisi, specifically in the past 10 or 15 days regarding the Palestinian cause, reopening the Rafah border crossing, sending aid to the Gaza Strip, sending delegations, security delegations to Palestine and Israel to be ensuring that the ceasefire is being maintained. How do you see the importance of regaining the image, rebuilding the identity of Egypt, not just for the people living outside of the country, but for the people living inside it as well?
I will use your words. You put the words very beautifully, let me tell you.
Thank you very much.
It all started, we started giving the message that we're not joking. And President Sisi said, if you go back a few months, when he put on the map, nobody crossed this cert line in Libya.
A red line.
Red line. And people were taking it light and joke. Ended up it was not a joke. He meant his words. Okay, so we're going back saying security, securing our borders, our strategic borders. It's not where Saloum is. No, we have to say it is past Benghazi. Cert, nobody moved that line. So we mean it. We did it. We delivered the message that we're not joking. And we secured the western borders. Then we started with the River Nile. Diplomacy is going its way, but we started regaining again our relation with our brothers in Sudan, with our brothers in South Sudan, with our neighbor countries like Uganda, with Kenya, and with Burundi. All of this were movements and giving signals. We are not joking. We're just going again and putting security, stability to Egypt. Then finally with Djibouti. So this is the whole Nile with its resources and all that country. Then after that, I can see that the moves will be the rest of Africa, but it is going a bit by bit. It was Egypt, the borders, going to the Nile, and it is going steadily but surely.
Meeting the promises, as you've mentioned, meeting the words of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in many fields, not just in this issue of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, but in the Mediterranean, for example, in Libya, for example. So do you think that those successes would give the Egyptians and the people living outside of Egypt as well the confidence that this issue will be solved soon? As promised by President al-Sisi, the Ethiopia Renaissance Dam.
It's going to be solved. It is with the way it's going. And we don't want to go in much more deep diplomatic issues, but the way it is going, and with the message.
But it gives confidence.
With the message getting out, the way it is going.
Yes.
They have to follow what we are saying. Now, if we're going to talk it, let's look at the map. They are locked in completely. This country, which is inside right now, which is Ethiopia, they need the ports. The ports, nothing is going. We have now, if you're looking with the news which is coming, we have army and we have joined coalitions with the Sudanese and in these area, and we have
Guardians of the Nile.
Yes. So all of this, when you add them up, it is, and with what happened in Libya, okay, and with the people who were in Libya, we're not joking. There is no joke here. So they better come to the table. They better watch the words, what they're going to say, and you start to see change in the words. Immediately when this started to move, if we go back a week ago, what did President Biden said? Oh, the Egyptian and the Ethiopian need to sit, and the Ethiopian need to sit with the Egyptians to start to resolve this problem. So, because they read the movement, and we mean, if we can say it like a street word, we mean business. Yes.
A very important statistic or fact about Ethiopia, it is landlocked. And about 80% of the trade of Ethiopia passes through Djibouti. So the importance of Djibouti as a mediator between the downstream countries, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia on the other side. How do you see it following this fact?
Okay, Djibouti and Eritrea, both of them, the Djibouti is an Arab country. Okay, so we have, and we have our military agreement through the Arab League in it. So, and we are an Arab country, they are an Arab country. And with what's going to happen, and with us helping them to maintain their security and development. With all of that, they're going to squeeze definitely on this locked country, and they're going to bring them to sit on the table. There is nothing for them is going to go out or come in. It was a very, very well played move, and it had a lot of guts of the president to say, I'm going to Djibouti. It's the decision by itself going to this, to Djibouti, means a lot, and it's going to have like a tidal wave which is going to start to happen, and I will not be surprised if we're going to see in the first coming days that things start going to move very well in that direction, especially with President Biden and the United States putting its effort to start resolving the issues in the Middle East and Africa. So there is no stability without the Palestinians and solving this issue with Ethiopia. So they're going to put their forces and their effort and their weight, and it's going to be solved.
You've mentioned the U.S. and the calls that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had received from the American counterpart Joe Biden in the past 2 weeks regarding the Palestinian cause and the efforts.
2 calls almost in one day.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and one of them for the efforts of having a ceasefire between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and the statements by the American President Joe Biden. Do you think that they have the same stance of the previous administration of Donald Trump regarding the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam?
No. Completely on the contrary. President Trump was completely from another planet. He was not on planet Earth, let me saying that word. And what helped us here in these issues is that President Biden is not new to what's going on. He was the vice president of President Obama. He knew everything what's going on. And the 4 years of President Donald Trump was just like a block which going on. Now we're going back, and he knows with whom he's talking. He knows the depth of the relations and the importance of each country, and that's by far there is no comparison between Trump and.
No, I mean in the stance regarding building the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
He
and
knows
how they could be impacting Egypt and Sudan.
President Biden and his cabinet know exactly what's happening in Africa. So I have no doubt that they are going to help Egypt. They know the value of Egypt. It is not a matter of a company like the previous President Trump or whatever his other companies. No. They know politics. They know the weight of each country. A lot of things is going to happen, and they know, and they put Egypt in charge. And they're going to listen what the Egyptian is going to say, and that means a lot. So when President Biden is saying Egypt is going to lead the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, and we're going to go with what the Egyptian is saying, did you ever hear this from an American president? This took a lot of effort and a lot of courage for these things to happen. So all the salute to our president.
President al-Sisi always fulfills his promises. One of his promises now is to be building more cooperation between Egypt and Djibouti following the historic visit. What are the areas of cooperation, in your opinion, that could be seeing progress between Egypt and Djibouti now?
I traveled and stayed a lot in a lot of African countries, and they need again, let's go security, which have stability. After that comes the most 2 important things for each country: health and education. So with us offering them the training in our police academies, for instance, offering them training in our army forces, whether it's Navy, whether it's Air Forces, whether it's the land forces, giving us access to the ports over there for our military vessels and for our air carriers to have a port over there. So we have our ports in the Red Sea, Suez, Ras Benas, and Port Sudan, and now we're going to have a port like Musawa in Djibouti. That's a very important strategic port over there. So all of this is very important to us. In return, we can train their armies, we can train police forces, we can train their students, we can give them scholarships in Al-Azhar, we can give them scholarship in our medicine, we can send our doctors to go over there. So our construction companies to go over there, take priorities in the reconstructions of these countries. When this first movement of stability and security start to go, we can, even with them, secure funds through the European Union, through the American aids or financiers, to go to be spent in Djibouti through the Egyptian companies. So it's going to be a win-win situation for everybody.
Following the historic visit of President Sisi, how do you see the possible change of tone in Ethiopia regarding building the dam?
Definitely. It's gonna, as we just mentioned, it's definitely, there is a change. Actually, the change starts to happen when the Egyptian president said his words and what needed to be done, then was backed by the strongest force on earth, the American president. Then now the Germans, then the French is going to come in. What do you expect from the Ethiopian? And with the move of blocking this landlocked country inside, their main export is coffee. There is no coffee going out. Okay, everything else they need to import. Okay, there is nothing in and nothing out. They're gonna sit.
The stance of Djibouti before the visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi towards building the Ethiopian dam, do you think it would be changing? Did they have a stance, a certain stance before the visit, and would it change following the visit, or they had the same stance before and after?
Djibouti was clear from the beginning that it's always going that and saying and announcing that this issue need to be resolved. And they are continuing their standards and where they stand with this.
So they have the same stance. Yes. Regarding the Egyptian national security, as you've mentioned, Doctor, that the borders of Egypt, they just don't stop at Saloum, for example, or Aswan or Noba, for example, but deep beyond that. Do you think that this visit of President Sisi would be enhancing the Egyptian national security, starting from the depth of Africa?
If it is not already helping to strengthen the security of the strategic security of Egypt, you will not find the president over there. They will not, the security team will not let him go anywhere except if they know very well that is very well secured, and that it meets the standards that for that type of a visit. And again, the message is out and clear. Our borders, our territory, our strategic depth, nobody has to cross it. About 6 months ago, I think President Sisi even said, when there was some turbulences in the Gulf area.
Yes.
The Gulf area. President Sisi said, the Gulf is a strategic depth to Egypt. Watch out yourself, Iran.
And we always had the same stance as before that in 2013 and 2014, Masafat al-Sikka.
Yes, Masafat al-Sikka.
Just a call away.
Yes, okay. And we did before with the Desert War and all of that. So we mean what we say. So I have no doubt that we're going to see change in the coming few days with the Ethiopian leadership coming back to the negotiation table, speaking the right words, going with what can be okay on the territories.
And as I've mentioned at the beginning of our interview, the security and stability of Africa are the main components for a big investment, the biggest investment that we could be having here in the continent. As I mentioned in the beginning of the daily debate, that tonight we'll be focusing on the presidential activities and the aid that was sent to Palestine, the reopening of the Rafah border crossing. The second report for today, we'll be focusing on the aid that was sent from Egypt to Djibouti of course, as one of the consequences of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's historic visit to Djibouti on Thursday after being wrapped up, the first since 1977. So we'll be having more details about the aid sent to the African country in the upcoming report.
Two Egyptian military planes carrying large quantities of medical aid took off from Cairo East Air Base for Djibouti. Military spokesman Tamer Rifai said on Friday in a statement that the Djiboutian side expressed appreciation for Egypt's efforts in providing all forms of support to the African countries. It also affirmed the importance of this aid in supporting health sector in Djibouti and enabling the country to confront the current challenges. The step comes as per directives from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and within the framework of continuing Egypt's support and solidarity with sisterly countries. This aid stems from the national ties and Egypt's fixed stance towards its brothers and the support it provides to them in the face of adversity and crises. The Egyptian shipment is the second to Djibouti in 3 days. The Egyptian shipment is the second to Djibouti in 3 days. The spokesman did not identify exact quantities of medical aid in each shipment. This last shipment also comes only 1 day after President Fattah al-Sisi's visit to Djibouti, during which he met with his counterpart Ismail Omar Jula.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate. Dr. Khaled Abu Heib, the importance of the visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was what we had focused on in the first part of the program, but now sending military aid and military planes with aid upon them to Djibouti. How do you see the importance of such a step? As you mentioned in the first part of the interview, that President al-Sisi is a man of his words.
As we just saw in the reports, it didn't take hours after the visit is over, and what we're seeing here is just the beginning of a lot of aid which is gonna go over there. This is definitely medical aid, and very important aids need to go over there, but definitely they're gonna be following doctors, medical staff, medical equipment. And even I will not be surprised that we will, I think there is the hospital of Djibouti now is being taken by an Egyptian medical care hospital over there.
Yes.
A group, let's say a medical care group is now over there. We're gonna see much more in the medical field over there, much more in the education, and much more in the healthcare in general. These are things which can start immediately, and as you see, they already started. And I know that it started before the visit. The aid started before the visit, actually. And this is happening with Djibouti and happening with other African countries, which we mentioned their names as we speaking. So these are important things to help secure these countries. Again, their security is from our strategic security. So this is happening first, and again, the companies and the trade will follow the training for the police, the training for the army, the training for their security forces. And President Sisi mentioned that it is very important to have stability to start fighting terrorism. Terrorism only grow in an environment where there is no stability and there is no hope for the people. When these things start to happen and they start to feel that their youth can come to Egypt and get education, or we send our teachers over there and their economic development start to happen, immediately the terrorism start to get out and to leave that spaces. And it is not an easy job, and the Egyptian people should not ever look to this thing lightly, or should come out and say, whoa, why is he going to Africa? He should have done this. No. It is, we left the 30 years and we knew what was the results. So now we are going from -0 now we're up and going up.
In 6 or 7 years.
In no time.
Yes.
6 and 7 years in a nation which is 5,000 years, it's no time. So what's been happened is, again, the word is courageous and the man of his word. And that's the way things has to go.
Yes, counterterrorism was high on the agenda between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh. How do you think this could be translated? As you've mentioned, of course, the students coming to be trained here in the police academy, to the Egyptian army, and being sent back to Djibouti. What are the other steps that could be taken by Egypt to be countering terrorism, not just in Djibouti, but in Africa in general? As Egypt, when it was heading the African Union, there was an initiative to be silencing the guns. How do you think we need to be enacting those initiatives once again, even after the rotating presidency went to another country?
That's a very important point. And if we just go to this visit of Djibouti, President go to Djibouti. Number one, let's go back again. Djibouti is an Arab country.
Yes.
Okay. For the first time, we see in the president press release with the Djibouti president, His Excellency Omar, they said that the role of Al-Azhar.
Yes.
Okay. When Al-Azhar role was eliminated in these African countries, okay, it opened space for the more fundamentalists to go. Now, with the Azhar's gonna start to go back again, and with the moderate Islam starting to spread, and for someone to answer the question of the people, who is a scientist in their religion, all of this with the economic development, thinks that terrorism is gonna go out. And it is, as we say, economically, and we can say security, and we can say also the army forces, the religious part, the religion part is very, very important, because these countries, this ideology for them is very, very, very important. So we need to regain our territory back again for Al-Azhar to spread moderate Islam, not fundamentalism.
Mentioning Al-Azhar, President of Djibouti is a graduate of Al-Azhar President Ismail Omar Guelleh. The importance of Al-Azhar, as you mentioned, to be changing the discourse of speaking to the citizens of Egypt, to the people in Africa about Islam, to be talking about Islam and to be countering terrorism at the same time. How do you think this could be happening? The role of Al-Azhar, of course.
Definitely. This is the how we call it. It is not less important than the military and the diplomatic efforts. The role of Azhar had always been, over the years, very, very important role. I'm gonna give you an example. Like, for instance, 2 years ago, I spent Ramadan in West Africa, and I was in Senegal, and they have a very big celebration over there for for Laylatul Qadr. And I was surprised that the people were sitting, and hundreds of people, but when the sheikhs of Azhar came, people left their chairs and sat on the floor. They cannot sit on a chair where the Imam of Al-Azhar, I'm not saying the big Imam, I'm talking about an Azhar graduate.
Not at the same level.
Yes, an
appreciation
an
for
Azhar graduate
Yes.
is entering, he sat on the chairs, everybody else sat on the floor. So this is how the Al-Azhar is so strong in these countries. So when Al-Azhar starts to appear again, have back his offices, start to open his schools, and the people can go and ask them for their daily questions, what they want. And they give them the moderate answers, like what started happening here in Egypt. What happened to the fundamentalists? They start to get away, and the terrorism thoughts will go out by itself, because there is someone who can answer the question the right way to be answered. So definitely Al-Azhar is very, very important, and I was so glad that the president mentioned that in the press release for his visit.
On the other hand, militarily, do you think that Djibouti could be needing help to be spreading peace, security and stability in the Horn of Africa region? Specifically that the location of Djibouti itself is near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and of course a strategic location for Egypt, for Africa, from the Red Sea to the Suez Canal. Do you think that they need help in this field, of course, in terms of a friendly, cooperative way?
This is a military question, and I can just assure you, definitely, we have presence over there. We will not leave strategically. We will not leave this area. The Egyptian army will not leave this area just without being guarded. So definitely it is monitored. Definitely we have presence over there, and there are plans. If anything happened in this area, how we could be over there, because again, it's the entrance of the Red Sea, and it's very important for the international trade. Yes.
Yes, and finally, how do you see the future of relations in Egypt, for Egypt, and between the African countries and the African continent under the leadership of President Al-Sisi?
I'll give you an example. If you go back in the past 12, 18 months,
yes,
you will see that in 2021, January 1st, 2021, was the implementation of Africa Without Borders, which Egypt started about 4 years ago.
Yes.
And 52 countries signed that treaty. And the implementation is going to start, I think, with 28 countries. So the most important part in it is that each country can sell and buy goods with its currency. This is very important and never been heard before of, which open now all these countries to the Egyptian
So
goods.
big steps taken by Egypt during the leadership of the African Union and after it as well. Dr. Khaled Abu Heib, the head of the International Committee at the National Council for Strategic Planning. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.